Unfortunately, yes, it's true. There's some craziness going on in the government surrounding these 401ks, and there's a bunch of new news that just came out that you need to understand. In this video, I'll be going over the fact that the 401k may be getting cut very soon and what you need to do, what to do if you plan on retiring early and living off dividends, but then the dividend gets cut, going over the fact that the S&P 500 may be gearing up to have another lost decade where we actually lose in the stock market for multiple years, and more. I chose 5 or 6 questions from you, my viewers, so that I could highlight them in a cool little video. If you have a question that you've always wanted to ask, go ahead and comment down in the comment section below, and maybe I'll choose yours for the next video. So this video is going to be as if I was reading your mind straight out of your diary, because I'm sure you've had a couple of these questions burning in your mind. Now this first question is actually a double question, so you guys are in for a treat with a nice little double question to start this thing off. Question A here, what field are you a professor for? I'm a business professor and I specialize in entrepreneurship and also finance. Question B then, say you plan to retire early and live off your dividends. What happens if a major recession happens and dividends are cut? What's the backup plan? Very good question, and this is why we do the research. This is why I say you definitely don't want to chase that dividend yield when picking a dividend stock. This is also why I advocate so much for ETFs versus individual company stocks. Now, very solid dividend-paying stocks or companies can weather the storm if something big happens like a recession. These companies are on the Dividend Kings and Dividend Aristocrats lists. If a company can consistently pay a dividend for over 25 years, that means they're doing something right and that they have a solid system in place. These types of stocks can be trusted. If a recession comes and a company loses money, loses profit for many quarters in a row, then of course they're going to have to pull that dividend because they can't keep paying out cash that they just don't have. That means that the dividend is going to be cut. So if you're relying on that dividend, that's bad news for you and your portfolio. The best way to keep yourself safe in this is to, number 1, make sure you do a crazy amount of research before ever investing into any one investment. Invest in solid companies with a very solid balance sheet and that has very low debt. Number 2, make sure that you're investing in companies that are in different sectors. If any one sector gets hit hard by a certain recession or a financial issue, you'll be able to weather the storm because you have other company stocks in other sectors that should help balance it out. The best way to do both number 1 and number 2 is to invest in a very solid ETF like SCHD or VYM, because those do all the work for you. Dividends can provide you with a life of financial freedom where you could actually quit your job and supplement that income with passive income by doing absolutely nothing and just sitting back. But you need to understand exactly how to do this dividend investing thing. So I put together this course with 17 videos that gives you everything you need to know all in one place, exactly how to do this successfully. Once you buy the course, it's yours to keep and you can come back to the videos over and over as you keep going on this investing journey. It's on sale now and the link is in my description. To stay safe always in this investing journey no matter what, I highly recommend that you have at least a year's worth of living expenses in a high yield savings account, because having a nice solid emergency fund is just so smart and will keep you very safe no matter what happens in the market. Question number 2. This one's actually one of my favorites to answer. What if the USA market will see its Nikkei moment with those highs not seen again for a decade? Great question, and it's possible. Not probable, but possible. First of all, what he's referring to is that Japan's Nikkei index finally hit a new all-time high after 34 years. We had something like this in America with the S&P 500 called the lost decade. From 1999 to 2009, there was no new all-time high. If you need this money in the next year or next couple of years, it's not the smartest move to put it into the stock market. Stock market can be volatile, it can go down, especially in the short term. Now, as far as that lost decade, the only people that would have a very hard time with this is people who need that money right then and there. And like I said before, if you do need that money in the next year or two, you should probably not have at least the bulk of it in the stock market. It should be in things that are a little more stable, like a high yield savings account, bonds, CDs, or T-bills. If though you're just an investor looking to invest for the next 10, 15, 20 years, then a lost decade is actually not the worst thing in the world. This would actually be very good. As investors, we make the most amount of money by buying in at the lowest amount and letting our asset appreciate. If I'm buying in every single month and that ETF is going up every single month, I'm not getting the most amount of value. If though that ETF stays pretty low consistently and I keep buying then, and then that thing shoots up, I will have bought at the lowest price and made the most amount of profit. For example, if I buy the ETF at $100, then $120, then $140, then $160, I now have 4 shares of the ETF and paid a total of $520. If I were to buy the same ETF at $100 each time, then I would have 4 shares of that ETF and will have only paid $400. Now that was obviously oversimplified, but we like simple around here. It's like a beautiful sunflower. How could you not like that? So the idea basically is that we just want to be intentional with what we're investing in and how long we're going to be investing for. Just basically having a very solid investing strategy. Yes, we had the lost decade of the S&P 500, but if one was buying consistently through that time, they would have been buying in at an average price of 1,200. And now the S&P 500 is up over 5,000. So if one invested $10,000 per year during that time and had invested about $100,000, that $100,000 would now be about $400,000 just a few years later. I like those gains. Now, question or topic number 3. Your 401k is going to be gone in 10 years tops. The intellectual case for getting rid of tax advantage retirement plans is strong, and the political case is catching up. If you're among the 56% of US workers with a retirement plan, I have some bad news for you. Your 401k will be gone in 10 years. There's been a brewing intellectual movement to get rid of 401ks for several years, with scholars on both the right and left questioning its value. And as the federal government gets increasingly desperate for new sources of revenue, the tax treatment of 401ks is a likely target. The 401k is not tax-free, but what is known as tax-advantaged. Contributions made while working are not taxed, but participants pay taxes when they withdraw the money during retirement. All of this cost the government an estimated $185 billion in 2019, or 0.9% of GDP, which is crazy. So there's positives and negatives for the 401k, obviously, but what we're looking at is the government is trying to find ways to pay back all of that money that they kind of just printed out of thin air during the COVID crisis. And so in my opinion, I believe that taxes are just exactly where we're gonna see this come from. So accounts that are making it so that we don't get taxed are things that could be a likely target, and then just increasing our taxes in general over the next 10, 15, 20 years is definitely going to happen, which is why I advocate so much for the Roth IRA, but you can check out my videos on that later on. If there's no tax advantage for saving and investing into your 401k, I'm pretty sure most people just wouldn't go and do that. So this is gonna definitely be interesting to watch if this is a move they're gonna make. Now, if the government were to actually take away the advantages of the 401k, I'm almost certain that the money that's already been contributed to your 401k will get grandfathered in. I just think moving forward, you won't get the tax advantage on the new money put in. So I'm not changing anything as far as investing in my 401k today, but I am definitely going to be watching to see where this goes. Question number 4. There are contribution limits for IRAs. Can you have 2 IRAs and max out both per year? Quick answer, no. Contribution limits for 2024 are $7,000 for those under age 50 and then $8,000 per year for those over age 50. I'd highly recommend maxing these out rather than buying that new pair of Jordans or that sweet new hairbrush, but hey, that's on you. So if you did have 2 IRAs, like a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA, and you're under 50, you could put $3,500 in one and $3,500 in the other. It just has to equal out to $7,000 total. You could put $5,000 in one and $2,000 in the other. You just can't put more than the contribution limit within that 1 year. Question number 5, this person asked, for the 3-fund portfolio, should I go with SCHD, SCHG, and SPLG, specifically since it's in the $50 range and one can get more shares? He also asked a second question here that I'll highlight in a second. Look at that, another double bonus question for you guys today. You guys are just so lucky. So first off, he was asking, are those 3 funds good for the 3-fund portfolio? And yes, I love each one of those. The foundational one tracks the S&P 500, and that's SPLG. The dividend one is SCHD. and the growth one is SCHG. His question was asking about SPLG over VOO or over SPY, since those all track the same index, the S&P 500. But SPLG is in the $50 range as far as price, where VOO is in the $400 range as far as price. I get this question all the time, and the answer is that you can pick either one. Just because one costs more or costs less doesn't mean one's better or worse just because of that price. You want to make sure and look at the underlying index, and if the ETF is tracking the S&P 500 100%, then it's the same thing. At that point, you just want to look at the expense and then make a choice off of that. If you have $1,000 in SPLG, or if you have $1,000 in VOO, you actually have $1,000 in the S&P 500. You're just using either SPLG or VOO to invest into the S&P 500. The second part of the question he asked was, should I add SMH ETF for exposure to NVIDIA since it's too high right now? And I like this thinking a lot, of looking into semiconductor or AI ETFs rather than any individual AI or semiconductor companies. Right now that is super hot and they're at all-time highs, and so to bring your risk down just a bit, you're going to want to buy into an ETF that's a group of these companies, so you're not all in on this one company, whether it goes up or goes down. And I do like SMH specifically a lot. Now just remember that you do have a lot of exposure to NVIDIA and these other AI or microchip companies within the S&P 500 or within your growth ETFs. But I did make this video on the top 3 semiconductor or AI ETFs right now, because yes, they are going crazy and it's something that you should consider. And if you've already seen that one, then go ahead and check out this playlist to keep going strong on your financial freedom journey.